I had a whirlwind marriage with a wealthy divorced CEO. He gives me $1 million a month for living expenses, as long as I take care of his 5-year-old daughter. Isn't that something? Later on, my relatives kept telling me off. Have you no backbone, marrying a man with a wife and kid? Look at our daughter, married well, with 2 houses, and her husband graduated from a top university. How about this, Melody? Let me introduce you to the owner of the bun shop at the gate. He's single. Step aside, don't mess up my good thing. Just out of school, and I get a call from a parent. My kid's pants are dirty. Didn't you wash them for him? How come there's a mosquito bite on his leg? Are you just letting him get bitten like that? You guys have serious professional issues. I think the kindergarten deserves a refund. I rubbed my aching temples and thought, am I a teacher or your babysitter? I took a deep breath and said softly, okay, we'll pay more attention next time. I hung up the phone, and suddenly saw a driver in a black Rolls-Royce waving at me. A Rolls-Royce? It shouldn't have anything to do with me. Calmly, I kept walking forward. The driver got anxious and shouted, "MS. Melody, please stop." Could it be that parent causing trouble? I started walking even faster. The driver quickly stopped the car in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing a sharply defined face. The man wore a perfectly tailored suit, with a mature vibe. Definitely a corporate elite. He must have been watching me for a while, flashing a faint smile. "Melody, I'm Julia's father, Mike." I was suddenly startled. Julia was that quiet little girl in my class. And Mike, if he hadn't shown up today, I'd have thought she was an orphan, with only the nanny attending parent meetings or school events. I smiled politely, "Sorry, my memory's not great, I don't recall seeing you at school." Mike maintained his perfect smile. "There's nothing wrong with your memory, I haven't been to school." Talk about audacity, neglecting his kid but sounding so self-assured. I glanced at my phone. "It's after work now, maybe we can talk tomorrow." The driver suddenly interrupted, "Melody, Mr. Mike would like to invite you to dinner." I looked at him with patience. "If there's anything, you can text me. But it's booked at the Imperial Hotel." "Can you?" Mike cut in, "MS. Melody, could you make an exception to work some overtime?" The word impossible was on the tip of my tongue. He added, "Paying $10,000 an hour." I swallowed back those words. "What do you mean?" Mike, sitting in the back seat of a Rolls-Royce, knew just how to appeal to us working folks' weaknesses. His deep eyes landed on me. "Don't worry, Ms. Melody. It's just about Julia's school day." In other words, no ulterior motives. I was hesitant for a bit. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't that the money was too little. It was more like, how was I even offered a $10,000 an hour gig? Just then, my mom called about another blind date with a relative. If I remember correctly, that's match number 27 this month. My headache got worse. I messaged her right back. "A parent needs something, I'm out." But I didn't expect that Mike might actually have other motives. Throughout the drive, he was quite the gentleman, asking about Julia's behavior and whether she was being bullied. While I kept staring at the clock. Once we were a little more comfortable, he handed me a document. I was eating and accidentally choked when I saw the words prenuptial agreement. Is this a dinner trap? What's this about? He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. I heard you're looking for a match, Melody. Why not consider me? No way, our corporate type's always this fast-tracked. No dating, straight to marriage? I skimmed the agreement, calming myself down. Sorry, I don't have feelings for you. He smiled faintly, but don't you like Julia too? Wait, so girls who like Julia should just become her mom now? She needs a mom, and you might need a husband in name. His bright eyes seemed to read my mind. Growing up, my parents always fought, and home was always a cold place. I swore never to marry. Even if I did, no kids. But who would have guessed, a hubby and daughter come served on a platter. I snapped back, that's none of your business. He went on, we have nannies, you don't have to do anything. My parents live abroad, so no dealing with in-laws. I've got lots of properties, I can transfer some to you. Wherever you want to stay, just ask the assistant. I'll pay you $1 million a month for living expenses. If that's not enough, I can add more. If you want, I could sponsor your school a new building, or just buy it all together. I was dizzy, and suddenly slipped, stop it, hubby. Mike paused. For a moment, the private room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. When Julia came back to school, I felt a bit different. Overnight, she became my stepdaughter. She's so adorable, with a sweet little face and those beautiful eyes, just melts my heart. Too bad she's shy and always has her head down. The day passed quietly until nap time. She asked to go to the restroom and slyly pulled me aside. Her voice was soft, with a hint of hesitation. Ms. Melody. Oh my. How could Mike have such a darling daughter? I hurried to ask her, what's up? She pressed her lips, Dad said I should start calling you Mom. I felt inexplicably shy. If he said it, then I guess so. Julia looked me up and down. Are you being threatened? Well, that's a new one. How could money troubles be considered a threat? I was surprised. Julia's only 5, but she knows the word threat. What on earth has Mike been teaching her? I shook my head, of course not, I actually really like him. She pressed on, what do you like about him? I continued to make things up, he's handsome, has a good character, and is kind. She crinkled her tiny eyebrows, teacher, none of those things apply to Daddy. I told her to get some sleep. She tossed and turned a bit before finally grabbing my hand half asleep. Teacher, Mommy, don't leave my daddy. I patted her head, feeling an unexpected tenderness. Don't worry. He's not just your dad, but he's also my gold mine. Who would abandon such a cash cow? Mike and I went to get our marriage certificate. The weather was nice that day, and he showed up with Julia at the bottom of my apartment. I quietly sneaked out with my household registration book. Of the 3 of us, Julia was the most excited. She blinked at me, Mommy, aren't you happy? I immediately flashed a smile, happy, of course, I'm happy. Mike wanted to marry me, mainly to give Julia a complete and happy home. I had to play my part in front of her and act like loving parents. Julia smiled with her eyes squinted, then held Daddy's hand. I glanced at Mike. He wore a crisp white shirt, with a handsome and refined face, but his aura screamed keep away. I swallowed, how about I hold your hand instead? Before I could finish the sentence, a warmth enveloped my palm. His hand was strong and firm, and I instinctively tried to pull away, but he held mine tightly. He fixed my hair a bit, his voice smooth and gentle, shy in front of our daughter? I forced a smile, not at all. I'm just so used to holding your hand I can't let go. We pretended to be affectionate in front of Julia, but once she turned away, we immediately let go. I exhaled, noticing out of the corner of my eye that Mike's ears looked a little red. For a guy with a kid, why is he acting so bashful? At the Civil Affairs Bureau, we followed the usual procedures for registration and taking photos. The camera pointed right at me, and next to me stood a man I had only met twice. The staff member reminded me, don't be too nervous. Relax. You look like you're being held against your will. Smile. I forced a grin, showing some big white teeth. Mike leaned in and whispered, why so tense? Nobody is gonna eat you. I gave him a glare. Easy for you to say, you must have been here a few times already. I mumbled, not like you lack experience or anything. He squinted his eyes. What was that? The flash went off, capturing the moment. The staff grinned, full of emotion. A perfect match. Julia, sitting by with a candy stick in hand, chimed in, Daddy, give Mommy a kiss. Mike and I exchanged panicked looks. That wasn't in the agreement. There were more couples waiting for their turn. I made up some excuse and we quickly left. Behind us, Mike chuckled softly. Mommy's shy. Don't tease her. Soon after, $100,000 was deposited into my account. Even faster, a slew of unexpected issues cropped up after our whirlwind marriage. For instance, Julia asked, "Teacher, are you coming home with me tonight?" So we wouldn't blow my cover, we agreed that she'd call me teacher at school. She asked the question just as we stood outside the kindergarten entrance. As luck would have it, my cousin and her husband drove by. Growing up, she always had to compete with me, from clothes to jewelry to phones, and even savings and marriage. She had to one-up me. Now, in her 7-inch heels, she stood eye level with me. She glanced at the school, swaying towards me, must be fulfilling work. I'm envious. I'm just stuck in an office drinking tea, so dull. Her husband held her bag. "Sweetie, you're so considerate, even bringing cafeteria food for your sister." She flashed a smile. "We grew up together, of course we care for each other." Me, "Move, you're in the way." Her husband shot me a look. "That's no way to speak to your sister. We drove all the way here, and this is how you act." No wonder. Did they take the wrong medicine today? Looking for trouble? I decided to ignore them and get Julia in the car. But she broke free and stood between us. "Don't bully my mommy." The usually soft-spoken girl had a sharpness to her voice. My cousin was surprised. "When did you have a kid?" Her husband, equally stunned, "Has to be at least a few years now, right?" My coworker was shocked too. "You're not single?" Cousin had a light bulb moment, her expression smug. "This child looks 5 or 6. By the age, you didn't give birth." She looked like she enjoyed the show. "You're playing stepmom, aren't you?" She exaggeratedly covered her mouth, lifting her phone. "I'm telling Mom and Dad." Julia pulled on my sleeve, worried. "Mom, teacher, did I do something wrong?" She's too young to understand the judgmental stares. I reassured her, holding her hand. "No, sweetheart, they're just being mean." She tilted her head. "What's mean?" I didn't get a chance to explain before my dad called, furious, only saying 4 words, "Get home now." Cousin scoffed. "My husband just got a new car, want a ride?" I looked where she pointed, not even recognizing the make. I took Julia's hand and kept walking. Cousin blocked us. "How long do you plan to keep this up?" Sometimes, I question whether she wants to be my mom. Why else stick her nose in everything? I ignored her and, to her shock, walked us over to Mike's brand new, understated Porsche. The driver had been waiting, and even called Mike to explain. When he put the phone to my ear, Mike just said 2 words. "Wait there." They say good news stays at home, but bad news travels fast. By the time I got home, my dad had already smoked a pack of cigarettes, and there were a bunch of relatives around waiting to see the drama unfold. He saw the chubby driver who dropped me off and blinked. "Is he the one you're married to?" The driver frantically shook his head. "Not me." He took off running. My dad, furious, threw a broom after him. "No guts. Look at who you ended up with." What if that's not who I married? My parents, who've argued all their lives, were finally on the same page grilling me. "You stole the household registration booklet?" Me, "Yeah." My parents were boiling. "How old is the guy?" Me, "I'm not really sure." My mom rolled her eyes. "What do you know then?" She demanded, "Can you send the kid away?" That startled me. If Mike heard that, I'd be doomed. Sending the kid away is like getting rid of me. I straightened up. Absolutely not. She's my daughter now. No one's taking her away, not even her biological parents. Relatives sat on my couch, enjoying the spectacle, especially my cousin's husband, whose gloating was almost uncontainable. He brought over 2 cups of water. "Aunt, uncle, don't be mad, Melody is young and naive. It's partly our fault for not watching over her. She must have been sweet-talked. Now she's willingly raising someone else's kid." I said she was easily swayed, especially after she went to college. Doesn't matter if she has good grades. Our daughter might only have a high school diploma, but she's obedient and handles house chores. Why'd you marry a guy who's already got a family? My daughter is doing well, married with 2 houses, and her partner graduated from a top school. This provoked my dad enough to almost trigger his high blood pressure. The truth was, nobody knew my cousin's husband once pursued me, but failed. Ever since he got with my cousin, he'd often message me, "Who do you think you are? You couldn't do better than me." I looked at him and said, "Are you a bunch of frogs? Never stop croaking." Right then, the front door opened wide. My dad, seeing my sass, grabbed a broom to hit me. I braced myself but didn't feel any pain. Mike had stepped in the way, frowning. "Are you okay?" The rich savior had arrived. I shook my head, my eyes lit up. Lately, I've had this reaction whenever I see him. Like a dog spotting a bone. But to others. Mike looked pained. "Sorry, I didn't know." My dad glanced at this stranger. "Who are you?" I eagerly introduced him. "He's my daughter's dad." My dad was skeptical. "Melody, can you tell the truth? You two don't even look acquainted." My dad's no fool, he was right. Mike and I barely knew each other. We'd met less than 2 weeks ago. Mike spoke sternly, "Dad, Mom, I apologize. I've been busy and haven't visited. These are gifts for you." He gestured, and several people began bringing in things. My heart sank. Are they going to deduct these from my pay? There was so much it overflowed into the next apartment. I tugged Mike's sleeve. "That's not our place next door." "I know," he said quietly. "Bought it 30 minutes ago." "Dad, I know you love tea. I got a shop downstairs. It'll be a tea house, and it's yours to manage." My dad had argued countless times with my mom over opening a tea house. He was flustered and nudged my mom. "You talk." Mom opened her mouth. "You." "Mom, I heard you had a spat with the supermarket owner downstairs." "Don't worry, that place will be a mahjong parlor, and you're the boss." My mom had indeed quarreled with the supermarket owner, even threatening to buy it and turn it into a mahjong place. Dreams, it seemed, had burst into reality. Mom hesitated. "Son-in-law, isn't this a bit much? Throwing money around might be vulgar. But it works." This scene felt all too familiar. Suddenly, relatives' attitudes shifted. Only my cousin looked upset, her smirk gone. "Daughter," she scoffed, "why brag about a divorced man with a kid?" "Aunt," she continued, "are you sold on all this stuff? How do we know it's real?" "Husband, go check." "Husband?" My cousin's husband kept giving her the side eye. "Stop it." "Why stop?" "Shut up, he's our company's boss." After the spectacle, a relative asked, "How did you two meet?" With my mouth full of apple, I froze. If they found out about my job, I'd have everyone competing with me for it. So, I acted fast. "Mom, Dad, I'm staying at his place tonight. We're leaving now." I grabbed my $1 million, Mike, and got out of there. But I realized, with Mike at 6'3" towering over my 5'5", I seemed tiny. I jogged ahead while he leisurely walked behind, making a pretty comical sight. As we reached the gate, the security guard noted, "Hey Melody, new boyfriend? This one's the best looking." "Really, Uncle Security Guard? Do you have to say that?" I turned to Mike with a grin. "Don't take it to heart. My parents found a few guys for me to meet." He nodded in understanding. "I won't meddle in your private affairs." After a while, he asked, "What number am I?" First, I said quickly. "I've only married you." He gave a small hum and leaned back against the seat, saying nothing more. When Mike and I got to his place, Julia was waiting for us at the door. She came running over with a big smile. Mike bent down to give her a hug. But she ran past him straight to me. Mommy, I was so worried about you. Mike stood up, a bit thrown, looking slightly baffled. His house was a 3-story villa. The housekeeper told me I could explore anywhere except the room on the second floor at the corner. My imagination started running wild. Was it connected to Julia's mom? Did Mike have some unresolved heartache? I dared not ask. Those who know too much don't last long. Mike sure handled things like a big boss. He was super organized, even timing our meal to 15 minutes flat. I was cracking jokes for Julia when he coughed twice. I was having fun, so I ignored it. He coughed twice again. I couldn't help but ask, "You catching a cold?" He glanced at my bowl and said, "You've got 5 minutes left to eat." After dinner, Julia was at her piano lesson, and I went for a walk. I was listening to music and occasionally checking my bank balance. Next thing I knew, I was lost. The sky was getting dark, and the eerie silence around me was interrupted by strange animal noises. I had no choice but to call Mike, feeling a bit sheepish. Hey. His voice came through, cool and strangely reassuring. "I'm still in a meeting, what's up?" I played it off, "Just went for a stroll, this villa area is massive." He seemed to get it, replying with a nonchalant "Yeah, sure." Realizing he was brushing me off, I hesitated before admitting, "So, don't laugh. I'm lost." He chuckled, surprised, "Sorry, I should have shown you around more." Later, he came to find me himself and even brought me candy. Wasn't the candy for Julia? In a rush to get back, I didn't think much of it. I was exhausted, so after the housekeeper prepped my room, I got ready for bed. But there was a catch. With Julia watching, I couldn't suggest sleeping separately from Mike. So, I headed to his room for a talk. I wasn't expecting him to be fresh out of the shower, wearing just a towel, water droplets running down his bare chest. Turns out he had a pretty nice physique. "Close your eyes," he said in a stern voice. I stammered, looking good, no, I mean, I didn't see anything." Blushing, I turned away and bumped into Julia's curious eyes. "Mommy, aren't you sleeping with Daddy? The book says couples sleep together." Wiping my brow, I realized this little girl was tough to fool. "Of course, honey, I just needed the restroom while Daddy warms up the bed." She turned and yelled, "Daddy, hurry and warm Mommy's bed, she's tired." I was moved to tears. What a sweet daughter. When I returned from the bathroom, Mike was already resignedly lying in bed. Not dressed in a suit, his handsome features seemed less intense, more like he was a little husband awaiting affection. Julia patted the spot beside him. "Mommy, sleep here." My heart raced a bit. Mike silently mouthed, "Just play along." Play along? Does he really trust me that much? I lay beside him, trying to act normal. My slip dress and his warm arm meeting gave me a weird, fluttery feeling. Julia left, content. I barely moved before bumping into Mike's leg. Startled, he said, "Don't move around." That's when I noticed he was blushing from neck to ear and looked away awkwardly. "We should get you a new sleep dress tomorrow." I looked down to see why. Turns out my neckline was a bit wide, thanks to all my moving around. Quietly, I tiptoed back to my room. For the June 1st Children's Day, the kindergarten hosted a parent-child activity. Parents and kids had to balance a ball between them using only their heads, no hands, shortest time wins. Mike showed up that day, wearing casual clothes, looking every bit the lively, young dad. All the parents were there, but when it was Julia's turn, she glanced my way. I had told her before that at school I was just her teacher. But seeing the hope in her eyes, I stepped up next to her. "Melody took a day off. Today, I'm just your mommy." She beamed, promising to take me sky high in a rocket when she grows up. During the game, Mike, being so tall, had to lift Julia to hold the ball. But when it was my turn, the ball kept slipping down. Out of breath, Mike asked, "Want me to lift you too?" Some of my fellow teachers started goading from behind, "Lift her? Just give her a kiss." Some of the parents watching weren't helping. Yeah, a kiss could get you first place. Do they even know? Could I really kiss the big boss? It felt just like when my parents made me perform for relatives as a kid. Under pressure, I bumped into Mike's head a bunch. The last time, my foot slipped, sending me into his arms. His Adam's apple bobbed as he chuckled. Might need to insure this head of yours. I retorted, what's so funny, hurry up. He huffed, don't be mad. I'm trying my best. When another $100,000 hit my account, I suddenly wanted to spend. Lately, with Mike covering everything, my money was just numbers on a screen. So, I hit up my best friend, got any tips for spending money? She paused, then said, you out of your mind? And hung up on me. I called again, I'm serious. She thought a moment, meet me at our bar. So, I asked Mike for a late pass, saying I'd be home late. He casually asked, where to? I bluffed, just going for some spa time. I haven't been to a bar in ages. The place is glowing with colorful lights, and some sexy ladies are swaying their hips. When I arrived at the agreed spot, I realized there were 10 male models with abs waiting for me. I instinctively thought they got the wrong person. Are you sure you got the right person? One of the models, with a very alluring voice, said, sister, we've been waiting for you. Another model, who was quite handsome, asked, sis, want a drink? I trembled all over and realized maybe this was one of my friend's tricks. But since the money was already spent, I just chatted with them for a while. Maybe they've been in society for too long. They were really good with words, making me laugh non-stop. But I never expected, Mike's driver also showed up at this bar tonight. Mike showed up looking quite furious. By then, I had drunk a bit and played rock paper scissors with a few of them, drinking them all under the table. A cold voice suddenly came from behind, enjoying the drinks? I shouted, waiter, another bottle. That's when I finally saw his face. Under the green lights, it seemed strangely eerie. I stuttered, don't get the wrong idea. Looking around, I saw 10 men, more or less out cold. Mike picked up a bottle and glanced at it. Cosmetic appointment? I was at a loss for words, so I just pretended to be drunk. Pretending to be drunk? He saw right through me. If you come back here again, once will cost you 100,000. I was pissed. You can mess with me, but don't mess with my money. Mess with you? He repeated, his voice inexplicably making me shiver. Because we were so close, I could almost see his deep eyes and every thick eyelash. This guy is really good looking. Like bewitched, I moved forward and kissed his lips. Then I collapsed in his stiff arms, completely out cold. I think I might have taken advantage of Mike. Realizing this, I jumped out of bed in the middle of the night. I've never been one to get drunk easily, and I was sober when I kissed him. I decided to go downstairs to get some cold water to cool off. But I didn't expect someone to be sitting in the living room. Who knows what it's like to see a shadow in the dark in the middle of the night? I screamed. Ahead came Mike's helpless voice, it's me. I felt my heart pounding even faster. It's you, now I'm even more scared. What was he doing sitting here in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Was he considering cutting my salary? My heart sank halfway. Give me an explanation. After a while, he spoke in a low voice. I fidgeted with my clothes, an explanation for what? His eyes were resentful. What are you dissatisfied with that you need to find them? He sneered, do you like being called sister? I stayed silent. He asked again, compared to me, what's the difference? Do they sound better, look better, or have more money? This weird atmosphere, could it be Mike's been possessed? I think I should bury myself in a coffin right now. With a trembling voice, I said, in my heart, no one can compare to you. Who else could give me $1 million salary every month? With that, Mike seemed satisfied. He waved me off, go to bed. I ran off without wasting any time. Since then, Mike's behavior turned somewhat odd. We used to only talk about money, but now he started bringing up feelings. When he caught a cold, he intentionally lingered around me. Even though he seemed a bit dazed, he asked me in a playful way, "Do you think I'm sick?" I put down the chips and went to find a thermometer. "Check it for yourself." I was weak, so he came closer and took off his shirt. "Help me." He seemed a bit shameless. Though he acted like this with me, he still maintained that gentlemanly, cool god-like facade in front of others. But because of his immense ability to make money, many people constantly tried to get close to him. We were at the mall shopping for clothes for Julia, and a blonde beauty approached Mike, completely ignoring me. "Hey there, can I get your Instagram?" Mike shot me a glance, as if expecting me to do something. But by then, I was already chatting with the store clerk. "Oh, you have a 6-year-old son. Our family has a daughter. She's adorable. I love buying her pretty pink clothes. Take a look at this piece, it's new this season." Mike pulled me aside, looking annoyed. "You seem to be enjoying the chat." I was actually a bit annoyed being interrupted. "Do you need something?" Then I realized this wasn't the tone to use with the one bankrolling me. Immediately, I straightened up and shouted towards the blonde, "If you have something to say it to me, don't bother my man." Somehow this put Mike in a good mood all day. The days went on like this until Julia's 6th birthday party. She's the rightful little princess of the G family, doted on by everyone. But this birthday party was low-key. She softly explained, "I want to help save money for Daddy." With the lights out, the room was only lit by candlelight. She closed her eyes and made a wish. "I wish Daddy and Mommy always stay together." Strangely, her wish didn't include herself. I didn't think much of it, kissed her face, and said, "Sweetie, time to cut the cake." When I first arrived, yes, my intentions weren't pure, but spending time with her made me feel more for this child who's not even 10. Just what sort of experiences have made her so understanding? Julia hadn't even cut the cake when suddenly, bang, the door swung open. A woman with sunglasses and a leather jacket walked in. She pressed her red nails against the wall, and the living room lit up instantly. She strutted in high heels, with a strange smile on her face. "How come you didn't invite me to the birthday party?" Mike held Julia's hand tightly and snapped, "Molly, what are you doing here?" The woman in leather glanced at me. "Haven't been here in a while. Looks like the place is lively again." I looked at Julia and noticed she was as pale as a ghost. I saw Molly coming empty-handed, no gift, all arrogant. Thought she was some mean relative showing up. "Ma'am, who are you looking for?" I asked. Her face stiffened. "Who did you just call ma'am?" She turned to Julia. "My dear daughter, you don't recognize your own mother?" Julia was terrified and hid behind Mike. I felt a sudden jolt. So, she's Julia's mom. That makes her Mike's ex-wife, right? Realizing this, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. Molly stepped closer, a strong perfume scent hit me. "Sweetie, tell Mom, has anyone been mean to you here at Daddy's?" Julia sneezed twice and darted upstairs like she was escaping. I told Mike, "You guys should talk." He frowned slightly. "Where are you going?" "Just need some fresh air. Even though I'm technically Julia's mom now, I know my place." Mike handed me a jacket. "Good idea, let me handle this." I choked a little. Handle this. Those 3 words sounded so odd. He asked, "Any other questions?" "Nope. Truth is, I'm a bit worried. What if they get back together and I'm out?" I wandered around by myself. Seeing couples everywhere, even dogs paired up, just made me feel worse. It was getting dark, and I didn't expect to see my cousin's husband here. I pulled my hat down, pretending not to know him. "Melody." When I didn't answer, he rushed in front of me. "I dropped Molly off here. So you're the one messing up my $1 million-a-month gig." I held back. "Oh, thanks." He looked anxious. "How can I make you see? I'm the only one who truly cares for you." I couldn't hide my growing impatience. Pretending to walk ahead, I accidentally stepped hard on his foot. He squatted down in pain. "Oops, sorry about that." He waved it off. It's okay. You've always had bad eyesight. I don't blame you. But I still want to say, I'll always wait for you. Who's got bad eyesight? A deep and somewhat amused voice came from behind me. Mike was there, holding the neighbor's big Tibetan Mastiff. My cousin's husband grew nervous. Mike, what are you doing here? Mike spoke coldly. What? Chatting up the boss's wife in front of the boss. Cousin's husband tried to say something, but the Mastiff growled and lunged at him, making him bolt, leaving a shoe behind. Mike came over to me. Are you okay? I shook my head, blurting out, aren't you going to spend more time with your ex-wife? The atmosphere cooled instantly. He gritted his teeth. Who told you she was my ex-wife? I was caught off guard. Then was it a shotgun wedding? A breeze blew, my hair covering my eyes. His expression darkened, he held my head gently and kissed me. Suddenly, I felt a flicker in my chest. With his forehead against mine, he hushed softly, I wasn't planning to say anything, but I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Julia is my big brother's daughter. Few knew Mike had a frail, sickly brother, Felix. Molly wanted to marry into the family, maneuvering to get pregnant with Felix's child. But Felix only wanted the child, never her. Molly hid Julia at her parents' rural home, using her as leverage to pressure Felix. She sent Julia hard, stale buns. How could a child that young eat them? She'd just cry helplessly. Felix finally gave in to marry her, but he got into an accident saving Mike. The off-limits room in the house held Felix's belongings. After Felix died, Molly's dreams of marrying rich shattered, so she left Julia in a trash bin. Mike found and took Julia in. But Molly always found new ways to make money, repeatedly using Julia as an excuse to demand money from Mike. Hearing this, it made sense. No wonder Julia, a loved and cherished girl, was always so cautiously obedient. After hearing the story, my heart went out even more to Julia. Why tell me all this? Are you dense? Mike was exasperated. My heart raced. Is that what you mean? He nodded. The night fully settled in, his eyes reflected the moonlight. I love you, Melody. Be my real wife, will you? And what about my $1 million a month? I asked playfully, twirling my fingers. There was a brief pause before he chuckled gently, a voice full of charm, you'll still get it. You can even manage my share. That Friday after school, I recognized a familiar figure at the kindergarten gate. I frowned slightly, planning to walk Julia away after sorting out things with the other kids. Molly tossed her cigarette, heavily made up, she grinned at me. We meet again. I dressed Julia in her coat. If you've got something to say, say it. Stop with the creepy smiles. Molly's face twitched. Where's Mike? I can't get into his company. You get me in. Julia hid behind me, tugging me back. Molly squinted, ungrateful brat, forgot who gave birth to you? What, now that you have a stepdad and stepmom, you don't want your real mom? You really think they love you? Once they have their own kids, they'll toss you aside. Julia was shaking a little, Mommy. I told the driver to take her to the car. I happened to have a new car parked at the school that I hadn't driven yet. I waved at her, let's go, I'll take you to find Mike. I could guess that she wanted money from Mike. Honestly, poor Mike, every woman around him is after his money. Molly didn't seem to expect me to agree so easily. She slammed the car door, you're something, marrying Mike without having kids. She sighed regretfully, went through so much trouble to have a kid, and it's a girl. If it were a boy. What happened? I puzzledly tapped the steering wheel, the car seems off. Seeing me get out to check, she followed, what kind of junk car is this? Can you check if there's a nail in the back tire? She actually looks a bit flat. Hearing a noise, she looked up and said in surprise, hey, I'm not in the car yet. What kind of place is this, you're just going to leave me here? You and Mike must be in cahoots. And I drove off. That evening, I told Mike about my heroic act. Daring to bully Julia, I made her pay for it. Did you know, her makeup was running? She looked scary. He was helping me dry my hair at the time, long fingers combing through it. He chuckled softly, well done. I felt triumphant. You can't give in to people like that, or it'll never end. You think she'll wait for me at the school gate? No way, I better hire a couple of bodyguards. After talking for a while, I got thirsty and realized Mike hadn't said anything. What's up? He slightly squinted, looking at me until my face got hot. I found myself a great wife. I pushed him away. Don't be so cheesy. He pinned my hands to the bed, lowering his head to gently kiss me. His lips soft and sweet, like honey. Later, clothes gone completely, he hesitantly asked, "Is this okay?" I looked away uneasily. Do I even have a choice? Just then, there was a knock at the door. "Mommy, can I sleep with you tonight?" That night, Julia clung to me tightly. I thought she was scared, so I patted her while telling her a fairy tale. She asked, "Mommy, will you have your own kids one day?" I tweaked her nose. "What are you saying?" "You're our precious one and only." She mumbled a bit more and fell asleep. No one expected this, but Julia went missing that Sunday. She told the housekeeper she was going to a neighbor's for a toy but never came back. She left a little note at home. "To my dearest Dad and Mom, Julia always knew you didn't birth her. She says I'm a burden. As long as I'm here, you won't always be happy. Julia hopes you'll always be happy and have a cute little brother. I'm going out to earn money. When I come back, I'll buy you the best cake." We were frantic. Searched the streets over and over, reported to the police. When we reached Molly's, she coldly said, "What's it to me? That ungrateful kid didn't come to me." We later got a call, finding her at a bakery doorstep. Dirty and wide-eyed, eating the bread the shop owner gave her. No one knows how she made it there. After finding her, Mike and I decided to cool our tempers with silence. He teared up in private, and I cried for 2 hours. I've long considered her my real daughter. Thursday night, a light rain fell. From the study came Julia's muffled cries, "Dad, I won't do it again." Mike sighed, softening his voice, "Little girl, Daddy's married now, and she really likes you. If you're not here, I lose her too. Can you help Daddy out? Can I go find Mommy?" "Go ahead." No one knew our arranged marriage would be public. A waiter posted online about it. CEO Mike, you know him? His wife's actually hired to look after his kid. I was serving them one day and overheard. It's crazy nowadays. Getting paid monthly. People do anything for money these days, unlike us who worked honestly for so long for little pay. The CEO's wife must not have an easy life at home, probably serving the whole family. At that time, Mike was fetching a basin of foot wash for me. I showed him the post, busted. He rubbed his chin, reading it carefully, "Serving the whole family?" He glanced at the wash basin he brought, perplexed. "When did you serve me?" That made me blush. The nerve, "I told you not to kiss me in front of the kid, but you just won't listen." He pinched my cheek. "You're so cute, how can I resist?" 10 minutes later, somehow, we ended up back in bed. I'm finding joy beyond money these days. Late at night, exhausted, he was like a tiger who'd had his fill. Satisfied, he started arguing passionately with online trolls. Think about it, could anyone get him? His wife is beautiful and kind. Maybe it's the guy using the kid to meet her? The phone light was glaring. I swatted it away. "Can you sleep already?" He scooted closer, hugging me, and kissed my forehead softly. "Good night." He slipped something cool onto my finger. Gently, he said, "Melody, let's have a real wedding." Me, okay.